It's time to take your business to the next level, the boss level. These are the premier business owner strategies and successes being utilized by the industry's top talent today. Rock your business like a boss, a VO Boss. Now let's welcome your host, Anne Ganguzza.
Hey everyone, welcome to the VO Boss Podcast. I'm your host, Anne Ganguzza, along with the bee, Miss Liz Atherton.
That's me. Good afternoon.
Well, Liz, It's been an amazing afternoon, and I'm so happy to now be speaking to you in your very own booth. Woohoo!
It's
your very
quite
own studio
special.
now.
I have a very underground view. Only special people can come to my studio. But yes, Ann.
You have to crawl under the table to get to Liz's studio, but I will say how proud I am of you. By the way, for those bosses that do not know, Liz has gone like above and beyond any other guest that I've ever had in terms of getting to record for the podcast. So Liz has traveled hours to studios, and we have begged, borrowed, and, all sorts of things to get Liz to a studio, because Liz did not have a studio before now. And now Liz has a very simple home studio, which she set up all by herself. We had some great help, though, from some amazing people. I think the biggest shout out, number one, will go to Brad, who initially helped you.
Brad Hyland.
Thank
you.
Thank you so much for helping my girl out. And also Mr. Tim Tibbetts, the VO Tech guru. Yes.
Woohoo. Oh my
He's
gosh.
amazing.
Yes. Thank
Tim is
goodness for
amazing.
Tim.
Yes. So big shout out to you guys for helping Liz to set that up. And we're listening to Liz in her home studio. So I'm really excited about that.
Thank you, Anne.
So Liz, that struggle that you had, or that we had in the beginning to get you going and to get you productive and in business with this podcast reminds me a lot of my first year when I started in voiceover, just setting up my own business and being an entrepreneur. And there were so many struggles that I had, and I wanted to talk about it today with the boss listeners, because I think that a lot of times it's a lot more complicated than they want to think it is. And I want people to understand what to expect the first year, what to expect your first year when you are a voice talent. Not when you're expecting, but when you're a voice talent, what to expect your first year.
And Anne, no matter what it is, it's got to start with, you have to be dedicated to what you're going to do, because in any first year of any business, and sometimes even more than 1 year, you are going to hit struggles that you don't anticipate. You're going to hit things that knock you down. You're going to have naysayers. You're going to have all those things that say, don't. And if you don't have a I can make this happen attitude, then you're just in trouble. And I just think it starts first and foremost there.
So true. So true. And the studio is a very, very important component of your business because, obviously it is your livelihood. You have to record for a living, and you have to produce files that are reasonable sounding, not even more better than reasonable sounding, but good sounding quality audio files. And to do that, you really need to have a home studio. And I remember setting up my home studio the first time. It was such a struggle, number one, because I was still trying to figure out what it meant to actually have a home studio, and where was I supposed to set one up, and how was that supposed to work. And I didn't really understand the science of it, which is why we thank people like Tim Tibbetts so profusely because they know what they're doing, and they can certainly help set up home studios in a heartbeat. And I've worked with a lot of great people in the industry. But I remember I was like in tears because I couldn't figure out what was wrong. I couldn't figure out how to get it set up. And I knew that meant, for me, it meant make or break in terms of my business. I had to get something set up that could produce quality audio. I just had to.
But you're not just doing that. That's one piece of what you're trying to make happen in your voiceover business. One, you've taken the decision, I'm going to try to do this. So you've got all these other parameters so that when you are running into trouble setting up your studio, which, like you said, is probably the most important component of what you're trying to do, because you can't run out and rent space to go record a bunch of auditions. I mean, people used to do that. I remember we had a guy way back when I first started doing voiceover agenting, and people didn't have home studios, and you couldn't go on like I did 2 days ago and purchase a Yeti, shout out to Yeti, but purchase a Yeti microphone that came with headsets and a filter on it, or a guard. and have it delivered the next day.
That's true, right? You had to go to a store and buy it. That's number one.
Exactly. Yeah. But, people used to pay to go sit in someone else's studio and record. But anyway, beyond that, now you've decided you want to do it yourself. And maybe you were or were not your own sound engineer in the past. So now you've got to figure out, how do I make this sound good? What do these levels mean? I mean, there's just so many things just technically to be a voiceover talent.
Now, that doesn't mean that all voiceover talent run out and go get a Yeti microphone, because that's another decision that needs to be made depending on what you're going to be doing with your business. Now, for example, Liz got a Blue Yeti USB mic because for her, it was a quick solution to be able to communicate with her clients and or me for this podcast in good quality audio. And the Blue Yeti USB just happened to work out great for Liz, and it was a really pretty color too. Sometimes that your microphone has to make you happy. I have a multitude of microphones, and for Liz's purposes, the Blue Yeti is serving its purpose very well. For me, I've got like 4 or 5 different mics. Now, that doesn't mean you need to have 4 or 5 mics. I've been in the business for, years. They're all great mics, so they still work.
And they serve their purpose.
They do.
I'm not auditioning. I'm not trying to be a voiceover actor. I'm just someone who chats a lot about voiceover. Whenever I've joined other Zoom sessions or things like that, I've done it from my laptop and whatever's built in. And, for an ongoing podcast, that just won't do. Right. And even as a guest, like you said, I've borrowed other people's studios, but now I kind of feel kind of special.
Yeah.
I am feeling kind of grown up. But even that was a mess, even that, because it wasn't just plug and go. Because I didn't have, like you were talking about, I didn't have a studio. Like a quiet room.
Yep, exactly. So there's all those factors that went into play for that. And if you don't know what needs to go into your studio, it can be really frustrating at first for you to try to set it up. And you think you can get all the information online. And I'm not saying you can't. You can get a good amount of information online. But sometimes when you're just in the throes of the beginning of things, it can be super frustrating if you don't have a support system, and if you can't find a direct answer that can be online. So,
well, Anne, and I want to jump in because I'm going to take the opportunity because this is a real nice segue between voiceover entrepreneurship and me starting a different kind of business that supports voiceover. As a VO talent, you do have the opportunity to reach out, but when it comes time to really make those decisions, I would like to encourage you to hire the right person to help you. And while people are like, oh, I can do it myself, I can figure it out. Mm-hmm. If you don't start with the right expert, whether they're your good friend and they'll do it because they love you, or you're part of a group, or you pay somebody, I highly recommend that you step into the realm with the expert to begin with. It'll save you time in the long run.
And it'll save you money in the long run, I think.
In the long run, exactly. And you're going to learn so much. So right now, I've started 2 businesses. My first one was a talent agency, and I sold it at the end of 2018 to go into Cast Voices full time. So very fortunate. Found some investors that are just the creme de la creme. But even with the creme de la creme investors, you still have to work through things like documentation, and you have to hire attorneys, and you have to do this, and you have to do that. Well, I had been working with an attorney that I absolutely love for all my years as an agent. Not an entertainment attorney. I have those as well. But I was, from a contractual business standpoint, I had worked with this attorney for years. My investors had their attorney. The difficulty came when we have 2 different attorneys who are broad, or at least in my case, I can't speak to their attorney except, they're both great people, but more broad-based and trying to figure out things. And I feel like if we together had hired an attorney, we might have been able to circumvent a lot of just the goings-on between our attorneys talking. That may not sound like a big deal, but when it was all said and done, it was a very, very large bill. We were just going with what we knew instead of maybe looking out there for the kind of business we were trying to begin together and found someone expert in our field.
Well, I think your point is that you need to hire people that are specialists in their field to help you to propel your business forward. I think that's a super important point that a lot of people I know, when they first get into voiceover, they try to get into it the cheapest way possible. And, of course, there are some great support groups. Of course, there's the internet at your fingertips. However, you do have to really have a mindset that this is a business, and a business is going to require investment. And let's say for voiceover, that initial investment, which I fully believe and stand on my soapbox, should be coaching, training, and the demo, of course, and as well as some good business sense or business training to help you navigate this industry. Liz, in your entrepreneurship, in your businesses, you required a hefty investment. And I think that it's something to note that voiceover, beginning people in this industry thinking that it's so expensive to pay for coaching or it's so expensive to put up a website. My goodness, Liz, can you shed some light on how much you had invested in the first year?
Oh, so I invested myself for many years trying to get it ready because it was an idea. And then...
and yourself and your time is money.
Well, that and my partner was also doing it with his time and his money, and we were both doing it in addition to what we were doing to make a living. All right, and that went on for 2 years. And so as you can well imagine, and a lot of voiceover do this, a lot of voiceover people have a day job and then their voiceover job, or a night job and their voiceover job. And they run parallel until you decide to do it. And when you make that decision, it's scary. And in my case, we needed to get someone to invest because we needed to be able to make some purchases, if you will. We needed to bring on a team that could make this and do it the way it needed to be done. And that was very expensive. And so we sold a piece of the company to our investors, and now we're partners. And the levels don't matter, but we all treat each other with a great deal of respect. But the pressure on me and my partner, Nick, who sold a piece of our company now, is exponential. At least it feels that way.
Right,
because we're not just successful for he and I, we're successful for he and I and our investors.
Sure,
and if you take that to the voiceover level, Anne, let's just say you and Jerry, and this is a hypothetical, right? You and Jerry are together, and you're like, Jerry, I know I've been teaching for a while, I'm doing this, but I really want to go into voiceover full time, and I'm going to need you to cover me. It's the same thing. Jerry just didn't put an outlay of cash like my investors did, but you're driven that way. You're success driven. And that you couldn't let it always be that way, that you had a fallback position, because that would never be your answer.
Right.
And that's just like my answer. I don't have a fallback position right now. The only way I can just keep moving forward is I so believe in what I'm doing. It oozes from my tip of my toes through the end of my hair. And I'm not trying to be funny there. Everything about me is about the success of this company. And it stems from, and this is my soapbox, but anybody that knows me that knows it's true, I love my tribe. I love them. I love the VO people. They're just the most amazing humans. And so now I feel added pressure because so many of them are my friends that I have to make this work. Right?
Right.
And the same thing with you. You're a voiceover talent. You're trying to set up a studio. 1, you're trying to make it sound right. 2, you're worried about making your bills. 3, you bought a mic and it's not working. What are you going to do there? 4, who do you call? And that's day one.
Right. Well, exactly.
Day one.
And I want to make sure, I want to talk hard numbers, Liz. You kind of, I'm sorry, but you didn't really say anything about numbers. I want people to understand that numbers can mean thousands, like entrepreneurs.
Hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, hundreds of thousands of dollars for people that are not necessarily voiceover talent. We're kind of lucky in a lot of ways because the initial investment isn't a huge sum of money, which is why I think it's a big draw for so many people, right? They say, oh, it's cheap. I can do it myself. I can just get a USB mic. I speak into the mic, and we deal with this all the time. However, if you really want to be serious about this and you really are an entrepreneur-driven soul and you really want to make this a part of your life and your business, you do have to seriously consider investing, money. And I'm not just talking $10 or $20. I'm talking probably thousands of dollars for good
probably
coaching.
$10,000 to $20,000. And listen, what I see from the voiceover as an outsider looking in, absolutely appreciating it. 1, when you go in, whether it's part-time or full-time, you have to spend money on equipment.
Yeah.
You have to spend money on a quiet space. You have to spend money on a laptop. Okay, there's your hardware, if you will, right?
Sure.
Then, hey, you got to learn how to run Pro Tools or Audition or IpDiddle or Connection Open or Source Connect. You got to learn how to make all that stuff happen. All of this stuff is just so that you can talk. And then now you've got permission to talk and someone can hear you. But if you don't deliver the lines in a way that makes sense for the listener, you're not present when you're doing it, you're not learning how to do it. If I was looking to become a voiceover talent, well, let's pretend someone like me, because I have an unfair advantage, okay? But if I were new to the business, I would absolutely be seeking out who are the best coaches, hands down. And that's with voiceover on camera, no matter what it is. You want to start with someone who's going to help you sell your voice.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That's what you're doing. You are selling your voice.
You are your brand. I mean, you are your product. And so every business has a product. And obviously, you need to make that investment in yourself for it to make sense, for you to have a great product. And so, yes, definitely coaching. Now, one other thing I want to also bring up, Liz, is let's talk about time, right? The amount of time that people put into their careers before they tend to get frustrated. I am going to tell you that literally for me to really start seeing any return on my investment, it was a good, 5 years at the time.
Well, I was just about to say at least 5 years. Well, here's the thing. Let me give you a correlation. You're out of high school and you're going to go to college because you want to be in a specialized career, right? Or you're going to go to a trade school because you're going to be in a specialized career. Sometimes trade schools, you can get there in 2 years, maybe. I only know of a few trade schools because of my 4 children, one went to trade school. He became a cordon bleu chef. He's not doing that anymore, but he was on a path to be a cordon bleu chef. I have 3 sons, so that was my first son. My second son went all the way through and got his master's. It took him 6 years, 7 years. I'm sorry, Drew, if you're listening and I mess it up, to get his master's so that he could be on a particular career path. My third son, he's an actor, but he's also my partner in Cast Voices, and he went to trade school. He's a unique bird. He went to college at 12, at 10, so he's kind of a unique beast there. And then my daughter is going to become a doctor. And the reason I'm telling you about all these years in school, it's the same thing with voiceover.
Yeah, training.
My kids trained and trained and trained.
Sure.
And the same thing in voiceover. Are there anomalies? Of course, and they do exist. But even a voiceover prodigy still has to learn the equipment.
Sure. I just want to tell all of you listeners out there to just don't quit. Well, actually, all right, maybe quit, because maybe that's less competition, right? For the rest of us. But I mean, look, there's so many people that I see that they go the lengths, they get their demo, and then ultimately they find they have such problems getting the gigs and getting work, and then they get frustrated and then they give up. So Liz and I are here to tell you, look, at least 5 years. They say with any good business, any good entrepreneurial business, it's 5 years for a return on your investment. I'm going to say it's even closer to 10, and I've said it before. Before you really start to feel like you've got your business is solid, it's, gaining ground, and you've developed strategies in order to maintain stable income throughout your career. And it's one of those things that you may have to keep adjusting. You have to keep testing the waters, keep adjusting, keep those ideas flowing. Like Liz, I know you've got multiple businesses happening and things evolve and change along with the times. I think a great voiceover actor has to do the same thing. Just because after a year or two, if things aren't going right, you're not getting the gigs, think about how you can strategize and maybe change your direction so that you can test the waters there and see if you find success there.
Or you develop another voice, and then you develop another voice. Yeah. And you develop these voices by working with people to help you develop these voices. And the reason I say that is because, in effect, you are diversifying as a voice actor by doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Let's pretend for a minute that I'm a voiceover actor. I don't think I can do anything but what you're hearing right now. I can sweeten it up, and I'm not trying to be funny. Well, I guess I was trying to be funny, but so that's not my thing. But if I were a true voiceover actor, I would try to be this voice. I would work on my character voices.
Or work on different genres, absolutely.
Maybe get really good at e-learning.
Or have parallel paths. That's what I like to say.
Yes, and I think you absolutely have to have that in anything you're doing. Cast Voices, for me, that's a full-time gig right now. But until we were up and running, I was still working on Cast Voices and still trying to find other avenues of revenue because I had to eat.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that happens for all of us, for, even established voiceover talent that have careers, got to look for that predictable income, because at this point, if you're not working for the man, or, you're not working for someone else, I shouldn't even say the man anymore. I like to say, if you're not working for someone, you essentially need to be able to be that person yourself, right? You're working for yourself. So now you've got to assure that you've got revenue streams that are going to support you in your business. And, multiple revenue streams, we've talked about this in the past. There's nothing shameful about that. My gosh, I think the best of us all have multiple revenue streams.
Well, especially as a voiceover actor, when you're always on the hunt.
Yeah, you can't stop.
Since you're always trying to make things happen, you must save. Don't be like me. And it's no secret, this past year was extraordinarily difficult for me. I was fully leveraged in myself. I used to be like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And no, I had to turn it around. And when I did, it really made a difference. And you have to do that as an entrepreneur no matter what. You can't be going, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong? You've got to turn around and say,
let's make it right. Let's make it
right.
Let's try this and make it right.
Let's frame it differently.
Absolutely.
I'm not broke. I'm fully leveraged in myself.
Yep.
I'm not hungry. I'm dieting.
I'm dieting. There you go. What a great analogy. So bosses, you have to understand your first year is going to be tough. I don't know really of anybody, unless there's that one or two prodigies that maybe, were able to really be successful in their first year. Understand, guys, that it's going to take time, and it's going to take an investment in yourself, in your time, money invested in your training, coaching, whatever it is, to make you market your product. And make your product better.
And Anne, just throwing this in because I know, we're winding up here, but I want to just throw this in. And even if you have been doing this for 15 years, because you see those seasoned professionals out there, even if you've been doing this for 15 years, you're going to have a bad year here and there.
Yeah.
You have to be able
to be prepared for that.
Be prepared for that and let your landscape be fluid. You have to. All right. Thanks, Anne.
Good stuff. Good stuff, Liz.
Always.
All right, bosses. I'm going to give a great big shout out to our sponsor, IPDTL. You too can connect and work like a boss. Find out more at IPDTL.com. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Join us next week for another edition of VO Boss with your host, Anne Ganguzza. And take your business to the next level. Sign up for our mailing list at voboss.com and receive exclusive content, industry revolutionizing tips and strategies, and new ways to rock your business like a boss. Redistribution with permission, coast-to-coast connectivity via IPDTL.
Tim, from the mic itself, I'm about 9 inches.
Okay, can you get it closer to you?
No.
Yeah, that would make it better. That would make a difference.
Hold on. What I can do is I can double my pillow. Stand by. It's a twist.
Double my pillow.
All right, Anne, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
That's as good as it's going to get. I put my foot down. Oh,
You. Jesus.
Oh, Jesus, I need a drink. All right.
Tim.
Does it sound okay to her, Liz?
And does it sound okay to you?
It sounds decent. It really does. It sounds good.
Listen, she thinks it sounds the best that she's ever heard me, and she wants us to get on with it. I'm so lying, Tim.
I'll let you go.
Tim,
you are so
you are
awesome,
the best,
man.
Oh my God,
you rock.
Good. Have a good podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Take
Tim.
care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.